Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. The Galactic Empire chose Earth. Then humans fought back. The enormous ship hung in space, its metallic surface reflecting the distant light of Earth's sun. Admiral Cross stood on the command deck, looking at the blue planet displayed on the main screen, his thin lips curved into what passed for a smile among his kind. "So this is the planet Earth," he said, his voice flat and cold. "It looks small and weak." The scout officer nodded. "Yes, Admiral. Our reports show the humans are far behind us in technology. They have only just begun space travel beyond their own moon. They still fight among themselves over land and resources." Admiral Cross had conquered 17 planets for the Galactic Empire. Earth would be his 18th. The Empire spread across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, bringing hundreds of worlds under its control. Some joined willingly, seeing the benefits of imperial rule, others needed to be shown the error of resisting. "Prepare a small fleet," ordered Cross. "We won't need much to take this world, a few battle cruisers should be enough." His second-in-command, Officer Trell, looked concerned. "Sir, our standard procedure is to send at least 15 ships for a planet of this size." Cross waved his hand dismissively. "Don't waste resources. These humans have nothing that can challenge even one of our ships. I want this conquest done quickly and cheaply. The Emperor grows tired of long campaigns." "As you command, Admiral," said Trell, bowing slightly before leaving to carry out the orders. Cross continued studying the planet. Intelligence reports showed that humans were divided into many nations with different languages and cultures. They had nuclear weapons but had barely used them, and their space technology was primitive. It would be an easy victory, another jewel for the Empire's crown. On Earth, Dr. Thomas Reed was working late at the Global Space Defense Initiative headquarters. As the head scientist for the secret international agency, he had been tracking unusual signals from the edge of the solar system for weeks. Tonight, those signals had changed. "They're moving," he said, pointing at the monitor. His assistant, Maria, looked over his shoulder. "Moving where?" she asked. "Toward us, and fast. Whatever they are, they'll reach Earth orbit in less than 2 days." Maria's face showed worry. "Should we alert the Security Council?" Thomas nodded. "Call Director Wilson immediately and tell him Code Prometheus is active." Within hours, leaders from every major nation were gathered in an emergency virtual meeting. Though they often disagreed on Earth's problems, the potential threat from space united them in ways nothing else could. "Ladies and gentlemen," began Director Wilson, his face grim on screens around the world, "we have confirmed the presence of 5 large spacecraft approaching Earth. They are not from any Earth nation. We are facing first contact with an alien civilization." The Chinese president spoke first. "Are they hostile?" "We don't know," answered Wilson, "but they haven't responded to any of our attempts at communication and they're moving fast, information that suggests military." The Russian leader leaned forward. "What defenses do we have against such technology?" Director Wilson looked to Thomas, who cleared his throat before speaking to the world's leadership. "We've been preparing for this possibility," he said. "Project Aurora has developed weapons based on theoretical alien technology. They're untested against actual alien ships, but they're the best we have." "How many of these weapons do we have?" asked the American president. Thomas hesitated. 12 prototypes, spread across secure bases worldwide." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. 12 experimental weapons against 5 advanced alien ships. "We need more than weapons," said the Indian Prime Minister. "We need a strategy." 2 days later, the 5 Imperial battle cruisers entered Earth orbit. Each one was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons that could reduce continents to ash. "Scan complete," Admiral Cross reported, as an officer continued, "The humans have detected us. They are moving military assets, but nothing that poses a threat." Admiral Cross nodded. "Send the standard Imperial greeting, offer them the chance to surrender and join the Empire peacefully. The message was broadcast in all Earth languages: submit to Imperial rule, or face destruction. On Earth, the response was immediate. Rather than panic or surrender, humanity prepared to fight. In a historic moment, the United Nations unanimously voted to present a united front. "We will not surrender our world," was the simple reply sent back to the alien fleet. Admiral Cross was surprised, but not concerned. They choose the hard way. Begin the first phase of conquest, target their largest military installations as a demonstration. The Imperial ships positioned themselves over key points around the globe, their weapon systems powered up, ready to redestroy the humans below. But Earth was not as helpless as it appeared. As the Imperial ships prepared to fire, 12 hidden bases around the world activated Project Aurora. Strange energy beams shot upward from Earth's surface, connecting with the alien ships in blinding flashes of light. On the command deck of his flagship, Admiral Cross was thrown to the floor as the ship shuddered violently. "What is happening?" he demanded, pulling himself up. Officer Trell looked stunned. "Sir, they've somehow disrupted our shield systems. 2 of our ships report critical damage to their weapon arrays." "Impossible!" Cross shouted. "Their technology is primitive." Another officer called out, "Sir, we're detecting hundreds of small craft launching from the planet's surface." Earth's combined air forces were rising to meet the invaders. Fighter jets, which should have been useless against Imperial technology, were somehow penetrating the damaged shields, launching missiles that actually caused damage. Admiral Cross watched in disbelief as one of his battle cruisers listed to the side, smoke pouring from multiple hull breaches. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. The science officer looked up from his station. "Sir, they appear to have developed technology specifically designed to counter our systems. The energy signature is unlike anything we've encountered, but it's effectively neutralizing our advantages." Thomas Reed watched from his command center as the human counterattack progressed. Project Aurora had worked better than they had dared hope. For decades, scientists had been studying crashed alien scout ships, kept secret from the public, to develop defenses against exactly this kind of attack. "They didn't expect us to be ready," Thomas said to Maria. "That's our one advantage." Around the world, humanity fought with everything it had. The battle was far from one-sided, but the invaders were facing something they had never expected, a primitive species that somehow wasn't primitive when it came to defense. Admiral Cross, facing the first serious challenge of his career, made a decision. "Regroup the fleet at a safe distance," he ordered. "We need to reassess our approach." As the damaged Imperial ships withdrew to a higher orbit, humans celebrated their first small victory. But Thomas Reed and the world's leaders knew the truth: this was just the beginning. The aliens would be back, and next time they wouldn't underestimate Earth. "We've surprised them," Thomas told the Emergency Council. "But now we need to prepare for their real attack." For the first time in history, all of humanity stood united against a common threat. The Galactic Empire had made a serious mistake in targeting Earth, and they were about to learn just how resourceful humans could be. Admiral Cross paced the command deck of his flagship, rage evident in every step. The ship still showed battle damage from their first encounter with the humans. Repair drones worked frantically outside the hull, their lights visible through the viewports. "How?" he demanded, stopping in front of his science officer. "How did a primitive planet know how to counter our shield technology?" The science officer, Mira, looked nervous. "Sir, we believe they may have captured and studied one of our scout ships. Records show we lost contact with Scout Unit 17 in this system about 50 Earth years ago." Cross slammed his fist on a nearby console. "And this information wasn't in the briefing. Someone will pay for this failure." Officer Trell approached cautiously. "Admiral, the Emperor has sent a message. He demands to know why a simple conquest has turned into a humiliation." Cross's face darkened. "Tell him we underestimated the humans, but we will not make that mistake again. Request reinforcements, 20 battleships at minimum." 20 ships, Trell repeated, looking shocked. For one primitive world? Cross said through gritted teeth. These humans are not as primitive as we thought. On Earth, Major Robert Hayes watched the alien ships through high-powered binoculars. They had retreated to a higher orbit, but remained visible as moving stars against the night sky. As the military commander of the Global Defense Forces North American Division, he had the best view from his mountain outpost in Colorado. "They'll be back," he said softly to no one in particular. With him, his second-in-command, Captain Lisa Chen, nodded. "The question is, how long do we have to prepare?" Robert lowered his binoculars. "Dr. Reed estimates 2 weeks for them to bring reinforcements. We need to be ready." The past 3 days had been a whirlwind of activity across the planet. Ancient enemies now work together, sharing military resources and technology. Scientists from rival nations collaborated openly, studying the damaged alien ship that had crashed in the South Pacific. In his underground laboratory, Thomas Reed hadn't slept in days. The crashed Imperial ship was a gold mine of information. Teams of engineers were already reverse engineering the alien technology, finding ways to adapt it to Earth weapons. "Their power systems are based on principles we've theorized but never mastered," Thomas explained to a group of international scientists. "But we can modify our existing systems to mimic their approach." Maria handed him a tablet showing the latest test results. "The prototype shields are holding up to our strongest weapons. If we can mass-produce these in time." Thomas nodded. "That's the challenge. We need to arm every major city and military base within 2 weeks." Across the globe, factories were converted to produce the new defense systems, soldiers trained with newly designed weapons, civilians built shelters and stockpiled supplies. Humanity was preparing for the biggest fight in its history. In orbit around Mars, hidden from Earth's detection systems, Admiral Cross met with the captains of 25 Imperial battleships. The Emperor had sent more than he requested, a sign of how seriously the Empire now took the Earth threat. "The humans surprised us once," Cross told the assembled officers. "They will not do so again. Our new strategy will hit them from multiple angles simultaneously, overwhelming their defenses." The holographic display showed Earth rotating slowly, with red markers indicating targets. "First wave will target their power infrastructure," Cross explained. "Second wave hits their command centers, third wave targets their weapon installations, and by the time the fourth wave lands, ground troops should be in chaos." Captain Dren, a veteran of many conquests, raised a concern. "Admiral, if they have shield technology, our standard bombardment may not be effective." Cross smiled coldly. "We've analyzed their shields from our first encounter. They're using an adapted version of our older shield systems. Our current weapons are designed to penetrate those." The assembled officers nodded in approval. The Empire's technological advantage would be restored. In an underground war room beneath the Rocky Mountains, Robert Hayes stood among representatives from every major military force on Earth, either physically or via secure video link. "Our satellite network has detected Imperial reinforcements gathering near Mars," he announced. "We estimate they have at least 25 capital ships, each more powerful than the ones we faced before." The Russian general frowned. "Our new shields are not yet deployed worldwide. We need more time." "Time is something we don't have," Robert replied. "Dr. Reed, what's our status on the new weapons?" Thomas stepped forward. "We've managed to adapt their propulsion technology to our missiles. The yield is 5 times greater than our previous best. Production is at maximum capacity, but we'll only have enough to arm about 60% of our forces by the time they attack." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Even with their new technology, they were outgunned and outnumbered. "Then we need something they won't expect," Robert said finally. "Something that isn't about technology, something human." The Chinese general leaned forward. "What do you propose?" "Deception," Robert said simply. "The oldest trick in warfare, we make them think we're stronger in some places and weaker in others. We set traps, we used the planet itself against them. The Indian admiral nodded slowly. Earth's oceans cover most of the surface. The aliens may not understand how we can use them exactly. Robert agreed, and our atmosphere, our gravity, our knowledge of the terrain, these are all advantages they can't take from us. Over the next hour, a plan took shape. It wasn't perfect, and it would cost lives, but it gave humanity a fighting chance. 2 weeks later, the Imperial fleet moved into attack position. Admiral Cross watched with satisfaction as his ships formed a perfect attack formation above Earth. "Begin the attack sequence," he ordered. No mercy this time. The first wave of ships descended, weapons charged to target Earth's power plants and energy grids. But as they entered the atmosphere, something unexpected happened. Massive storm systems, far larger than natural weather patterns, engulfed the ships. Lightning strikes, impossibly powerful and precise, hammered their hulls. "What is this?" Cross demanded. "Weather control. That's impossible with their technology." Officer Trell checked his instruments. "Sir, they've seeded the clouds with some kind of conductive particles. They're using Earth's natural electrical potential, amplified somehow." Before Cross could respond, reports flooded in from the second wave as they approached their targets. Hidden weapons emerged from oceans, mountains, and forests, places the Imperial scans had shown as empty on the surface. Major Robert Hayes, giving orders from a mobile command center disguised as a farming vehicle, said, "They expected us to protect our cities, so we made them believe that's where our defenses are concentrated. Meanwhile, our real strength is scattered and hidden." The battle raged across the planet. Imperial ships found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere, using the planet itself as both shield and weapon. Humanity was not winning, not yet, but they were surviving, adapting, and learning with each engagement. And for the Galactic Empire, what should have been a simple conquest was becoming a costly, frustrating war of attrition. Admiral Cross, watching another of his ships retreat with heavy damage, began to wonder if Earth was worth the price the Empire was paying. The Imperial flagship trembled as another blast rocked its hull. Cross steadied himself against his command console, his face twisted with rage. What should have been a quick conquest has turned into a 3-week battle with no end in sight. "Status report," he barked. Officer Trell's voice was tight with strain. "Sir, we've lost 4 more ships. The humans have deployed some kind of energy weapon that targets our engines specifically." "Impossible," Cross muttered, but he knew it was true. Somehow, these primitives are adapting their technology at an alarming rate. "What about our ground forces?" "Mixed results," the Admiral reported. "The ground commander says we've established control in some regions, but resistance is fierce everywhere. The humans fight house to house, street to street, and they keep changing tactics. As soon as we adapt to one approach, they switch to another." Cross pounded his fist on the console. "The Emperor demands results. Find their command centers and destroy them. Cut off the head, and the body will die, deep beneath the ruins of what had once been London." Dr. Thomas Reed worked frantically in an underground bunker as Imperial bombs fell on the city above, yet the reinforced structure held firm. "We've almost got it," he told Maria, who was connecting delicate wiring inside a strange device. "If this works, we can disrupt their neural communications." The device was a hybrid of human and alien technology. Through captured Imperial soldiers, they had discovered that the Empire used a form of direct neural link for battlefield communications, a system far more efficient than radio or digital signals. "Are you sure this won't kill them?" Maria asked, making a final adjustment. Thomas shook his head. "It shouldn't. Based on our tests, it will create a kind of mural, static, painful and disorienting, but not lethal. It should give our forces the advantage they need." A soldier rushed into the lab. "Dr. Reed, Imperial forces have broken through the outer defenses, we need to evacuate now." Thomas looked at the device. "We need 10 more minutes to finish the calibration." We may not have 10 minutes, sir, the soldier replied, as the sound of explosions grew louder. Thomas made a quick decision. Maria, finish the calibration. I'll upload the schematics to the global network. If we don't make it, others can build it as well. Thomas worked at his computer while Maria completed the delicate adjustments. The device hummed to life, its core glowing with an eerie blue light. It's working, she exclaimed. Thomas finished the upload just as another explosion rocked the bunker. Closer this time, let's test it now. If it works, we can. The ceiling partially collapsed as an Imperial breaching pod smashed through the reinforced concrete. Armored soldiers poured into the lab, weapons raised. Don't move, humans, the lead soldier commanded. Thomas and Maria raised their hands slowly, but Thomas managed to press the activation button with his elbow. As he did so, the effect was immediate. Imperial soldiers screamed and clutched their helmets. Some fell to their knees while others fired their weapons wildly, hitting nothing. It works. Maria shouted over the chaos. Run! They grabbed the device and fled through an emergency exit, leaving the disoriented Imperial soldiers behind. In North America, Major Robert Hayes led a guerrilla campaign against the Imperial occupation forces. Although the aliens controlled the major cities, the vast wilderness belonged to the human resistance, and their supply lines were stretched thin. We can't maintain this level of occupation forever, Robert told his officers in their mountain hideout. Captain Lisa Chen pointed to a holographic map showing Imperial positions. They're bringing in more troops every day, and they've started using civilian hostages to prevent attacks. Robert's face hardened. Then we need to hit them where they don't expect it, in orbit. Dr. Reed's new device is being replicated worldwide. If we can get it into space. How? Asked one of the officers. We can't launch rockets without them being shot down immediately. Not rockets, Robert said with a grim smile, but submarines. The plan was audacious. Modified nuclear submarines would carry special missiles designed to reach orbit from underwater launch positions. The missiles would deploy thousands of tiny drones, each carrying a miniature version of Thomas's neural disruptor. We'll need a distraction, Lisa pointed out. Something big enough to draw their attention away from the oceans. Robert nodded. That's why every resistance group around the world will launch a coordinated attack at exactly the same time. It won't be enough to win, but it will keep their eyes off the water. Admiral Cross stood before the holographic image of the Emperor, trying to hide his nervousness. The conquest progresses, Your Eminence. We control 60% of their population centers. The Emperor's expression was cold. Yet after a month, you still face resistance. This small planet has cost us 9 battleships and thousands of troops. The Council questions the value of this conquest. Admiral Cross swallowed hard. Earth has unexpected resources, Your Eminence. Their adaptability is remarkable, but we are wearing them down. See that, you do, Admiral, the Emperor replied. The Empire does not tolerate failure. The hologram disappeared, leaving Cross alone with his thoughts. The truth was worse than he had admitted. The humans were not being worn down. In fact, their resistance was growing stronger and more coordinated each day. His thoughts were interrupted by alarms blaring across the ship. Admiral Officer Trell called urgently, massive human attacks have erupted worldwide. Cross rushed to the tactical display, where red dots flashed across the planet's surface. Simultaneous uprisings in every occupied territory, they're desperate, he concluded. Commit our reserves to crush these attacks once and for all. For the next hour, reports flooded in from across the planet. Imperial forces engaged human fighters in cities, forests, deserts, and mountains. The humans were taking heavy losses but were fighting with suicidal determination. Sir, reported a sensor officer, we're detecting unusual activity in their oceans. Cross barely glanced at the report. Probably their sea vessels moving troops, focus on the main battles. It was exactly what the humans had counted on. Thomas Reed watched from a small submarine as special missiles launched into the dark ocean water. Similar launches were happening from submarines positioned around the globe. The missiles shot to the surface and then into the sky, accelerating at rates that would have killed human pilots. Imperial ships in orbit noticed too late, "They're trying to shoot them down," reported the submarine captain, "but the missiles are too fast and too numerous." The missiles detonated, releasing clouds of tiny drones, each drone barely larger than an insect, making them nearly impossible to target. They swarmed toward the Imperial ships, attaching to hulls and emitting the neural disruption signal. On the flagship, Admiral Cross suddenly clutched his head in agony. All around him, Imperial crew members collapsed in pain. The neural network that linked the entire Imperial force had become their greatest weakness. "Shut it down," he screamed, though few could hear him through their own pain. "Shut down the neural network." But it was too late. From the highest admiral to the lowest soldier, every Imperial fighter was incapacitated by the signal. Ships drifted in orbit, their crews unable to control them. Ground forces lay helpless as human resistance fighters swarmed their positions. For the first time since the invasion began, the humans held the advantage, and they used it mercilessly. Imperial High Command was in chaos. Reports from Earth painted a disastrous picture: 20 ships lost, thousands of troops captured, and Admiral Cross himself taken prisoner. The once mighty invasion force was in full retreat, with only a handful of vessels escaping Earth's gravity well. Grand Marshal Vaughn, the Empire's highest military authority, faced the Emperor's hologram with trepidation. "This is unprecedented," the Emperor said, his voice dangerously calm. "How does a preftal civilization defeat our most advanced battle fleet?" Vaughn cleared his throat. "Your Eminence, our initial analysis suggests several factors. First, we gravely underestimated human adaptability. Second, they reverse-engineered our technology at an alarming rate. And third," he hesitated. "Speak freely, Marshal." "Third, they fight differently. Imperial troops are trained to follow precise orders through the neural network. When that network was disrupted, our forces couldn't adapt. Humans, however, are accustomed to fighting with incomplete information and changing conditions." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "You sound almost admiring, Marshal. Respectful of their capabilities, Your Eminence. To defeat an enemy, one must understand them." After a moment, the Emperor nodded. "Assemble a research team. I want to know everything about these humans, their biology, psychology, history, everything. If they can defeat our military, perhaps they have other value to the Empire." On Earth, celebrations were tempered by the enormous destruction. Major cities lay in ruins, millions had been displaced, and the death toll was staggering, but humanity had survived, and more importantly, they had won. In what remained of the United Nations headquarters in Geneva, world leaders gathered to plan Earth's future. "We've captured thousands of Imperial soldiers and crew members," reported Robert Hayes, now General Hayes of the United Earth Defense Force. "Most importantly, we have Admiral Cross and several high-ranking officers." "What about their technology?" asked the Chinese president. Dr. Thomas Reed stepped forward. "We've secured intact ships, weapons, and communication systems. Their FTL drive is undamaged. With time, we can adapt it for our own vessels so we can reach the stars," mused the American president. "But should we? The Empire is still up there, and they're surely planning revenge." Thomas shared a glance with Maria before speaking. "Actually, that's not quite accurate. Based on our interrogation of Admiral Cross, the Empire has never faced a defeat like this," Robert added. "They're more likely reassessing than planning immediate revenge, which gives us time. The Russian leader frowned, but eventually they will return, and next time they won't underestimate us, perhaps." "Maybe," said Thomas, "but there's something else we've learned from studying their biology and psychology, something that might give us a different kind of advantage." Beneath the ruins of London, now rebuilt as the Central Research Facility, Thomas Reed studied the brain scans of their Imperial prisoners. Maria worked at a terminal nearby, comparing the alien neural patterns to human ones. "It's remarkable," Thomas said. "Their brains are physically similar to ours in structure, but the neural pathways are incredibly rigid." Maria nodded. "Their entire society is built on conformity and hierarchy, their biology reflects that, or perhaps causes it. They literally can't think outside the box the way humans naturally do. And that's why they couldn't adapt to our tactics," Thomas concluded. "Their neural network works perfectly when everything goes according to plan, but when faced with the unexpected, it falls apart." The door opened and General Hayes entered with a small group that included Admiral Cross under heavy guard. The Imperial officer looked diminished without his uniform, but his eyes still burned with pride. Admiral Thomas greeted him. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Cross glared. "I was not given a choice." "Actually, you were," Robert corrected. "We don't force prisoners to cooperate, unlike the Empire." "From what we've learned," Cross said, his voice subdued, "why would you give an enemy commander choices?" "Because that's what humans do," Thomas explained. "We value individual thought and decision-making, it's the source of our adaptability, the quality that defeated your forces." Cross was silent for a moment. "What do you want from me?" Thomas gestured to the brain scans on the large display. "We want to understand your people. Ours are not so different, biologically, yet our societies couldn't be more opposite. The Empire values order and control, Earth values freedom and innovation, chaos, even." "You mean," Cross snorted, "your planet had hundreds of nations fighting each other when you arrived?" "Yes," Robert acknowledged, "and yet we united against a common threat. That's another human quality, cooperation in the face of danger." Maria stepped forward. "Admiral, we've studied your neural network technology. It's brilliant for coordination, but it suppresses individual thought. Was it always this way in the Empire?" Something flickered in Cross's eyes, uncertainty. "Perhaps, I don't know, the historical records don't speak of a time before the network." "Would you like to try something?" Thomas asked carefully. "A temporary neural relaxation, it won't harm you, but it might let you experience thought patterns more similar to ours." Cross looked suspicious. "Why would I agree to this curiosity?" "Because," Thomas suggested, "isn't curiosity valued in the Empire? Understanding your enemy is key." After a long moment, Cross nodded. Once an hour later, Cross sat in stunned silence. The neural relaxation treatment was complete, the rigid patterns of his thought had been temporarily loosened, allowing new neural connections to form. "Are you all right, Admiral?" Thomas asked gently. Cross looked up, his eyes wide with wonder and confusion. "I see things differently, so many possibilities I never considered." Is this how humans always think?" "More or less," Robert nodded. "We call it creativity, imagination, innovation, it's natural to us." "The Empire," Cross began then stopped, struggling with concepts that had never occurred to him before, then. "Mercy toward enemies," Maria added, "was as foreign to you as free thinking had been just moments ago." "Because we're human." Robert said simply, "We can be violent and vengeful, yes, but we can also choose compassion and cooperation when it serves a greater purpose." Thomas leaned forward. "Admiral, what if there was another way? What if Earth and the Empire could learn from each other, rather than fighting, your order and stability, our creativity and freedom?" For the first time since his capture, Admiral Cross showed something other than contempt or pride, he showed interest. "The Emperor would never agree," he said, but his tone lacked conviction. "The Emperor hasn't experienced what you just did," Maria pointed out. "But you could show him, couldn't you?" A seed was planted, a dangerous, revolutionary idea that would change the course of two civilizations, and it began with one Imperial admiral experiencing, for the first time, the human factor. 6 months had passed since Earth's victory over the Imperial invasion force. In that time, humanity had made extraordinary progress using captured alien technology. They had built their first true spaceship with faster-than-light capabilities, named Unity. It represented the combined efforts of every nation on Earth. On the bridge of this historic vessel stood General Robert Hayes, Dr. Thomas Reed, and Maria Chen. Now, Dr. Chen, head of Sobiology, stood beside them, looking uncomfortable but resolute.